March Madness.
It's not a place. This country is to me a sound of drum and bass.
For the win! Incredible shot!
And welcome to our March Madness Social Bracket Challenge here in our Turner Studios. I'm Andy Katz. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to fill out the NCAA tournament bracket. Now, for 8 years, I had President Obama standing right here at the White House. He's out of office. We don't need him right now. I can take care of this by myself. I don't need to even be in the White House. I'm going to make sure you fill out your bracket, you follow what I'm doing, and then you're probably going to lose. But anyway, I digress. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to fill out each region, okay? You can see we've done this for the most part, and then I'm going to go through it. And then we're going to take some questions from you after each region, and then I'll circle back and fill out my Final Four and get you to that national championship game in San Antonio. So let's move and let's start in the South bracket, up in your upper left corner of your bracket. Okay, first of all, Virginia is the #1 overall seed for a reason. They won the ACC regular season title and the ACC tournament. What I love about this upper part of the bracket is, first of all, you've got two very hot teams up here in a 5-12 game. Kentucky taking on Davidson. Davidson just won the Atlantic 10 on Sunday, knocking off back-to-back nights St. Bonaventure and Rhode Island. They are hot. Meanwhile, Kentucky's playing its best basketball of the season, winning the SEC tournament by taking down Tennessee on Sunday. This is a great first-round matchup. But what could occur, and what I'm hoping occurs, is the next round, where you would get Kentucky taking on Arizona. Think about that for a second, okay? You'd have DeAndre Ayton, who is a phenomenal talent. I mean, he is just a specimen that we do not see. I mean, he's just incredible. Shot blocker, rebounder, can score inside and out. He's going to be the #1 draft pick, no question, in June. You've got Ayton taking on the lanky sort of tweener bigs of Kentucky. I think that'd be a great matchup in the second round. By the way, that would be played in Boise, Idaho. Virginia versus Creighton. Marcus Foster is going to have to go off if he can get by K-State, which I think he will. Taking on Virginia. I love Virginia's defense right there. So I think Arizona is going to take out Kentucky because of DeAndre Ayton. Now, there are other bigs certainly on Arizona, and Alonzo Trier is going to have to shoot the basketball well, but I think Ayton is the difference. I've got a Virginia-Arizona matchup, but I got Virginia. If there's any team, even though they give up a lot of size to Arizona, defensively, Virginia has been unstoppable, okay, to this point. And I think Tony Bennett finds a way to neutralize DeAndre Ayton and the Wildcats, and I think they advance to the regional finals, and those will be played in Atlanta, right where we are here, not too far from our Turner Studios. All right, so now let's go to the bottom part of the South region. This is my upset special. If everyone's looking for one, I got you right here in the 6-11 game. Miami taking on Loyola Chicago. The Ramblers, first time in 33 years that they've been in the NCAA tournament. Porter Moser, very good defensive coach. Look, I think they could take out a team from the state of Florida. Second time this season, they won at Florida. I got them knocking off Miami and advancing. Tennessee Wright State, let's move Tennessee over. The Vols, winning a share of the SEC in the regular season, getting to that SEC tournament title game before losing to Kentucky. And then we've got a Loyola Chicago-Tennessee matchup. I just think the Vols will be too strong for the Ramblers. They advance. Let's go to the bottom part. Nevada, Texas. Now, Nevada is an interesting team out of the Mountain West Conference. When Cody and Caleb Martin, the Martin twins, have played well, the Wolfpack have been, one of the better teams out west, but they've stumbled lately. Losing to San Diego State twice in the last week. They got blitzed in the, would have been the semis of the Mountain West Conference. So they're, to quote my colleague Seth Davis, leaking a little oil right now. Whereas the Longhorns, Mo Bamba only played 14 minutes of their loss to Texas Tech. He missed the previous 3 games. If he's healthy, I think he's the difference against Nevada. Cincinnati, Georgia State, I got the Bearcats advancing. We've seen how well they're defending right now. This is Mick Cronin's best chance to get to the Final Four. I like the Cincinnati-Texas matchup. I like Cincinnati advancing there. And then Cincinnati versus Tennessee. I think defense prevails over the Vols, preventing, by the way, a Tennessee-Texas matchup. Texas relieves Rick Barnes of his job a couple years ago. He goes to Tennessee. He wins a share of the SEC. Ooh, that'd be interesting. I don't think it'll happen. And then I got Cincinnati getting to the Elite Eight against Virginia, okay? That would be a defensive struggle, a great basketball coach's Elite Eight between Tony Bennett and Mick Cronin, where offense will be very difficult to come by. So that gets us to the Elite Eight in the South. You don't have to copy everything I'm doing, but I'm trying to give you a few tips. So let's go to some questions, or a question certainly from fans who are now following what I'm doing here in the South. First question, which SEC team will go furthest in the dance and why? Asks Lori. Well, all right, I don't want to go too far ahead of myself here because we want to get to each region. But at this juncture, you can see, if you can see through me or to the one side of me, I basically have Tennessee as the team that is advancing the furthest out of the SEC, which I don't think should be a shocker here because they want a share of the SEC. So at this juncture, I would have the Vols advancing the furthest. All right, so now we're going to move down to the bottom part of this bracket. That's the West region. These will be played in Los Angeles. So let's go over here. The Xavier Musketeers were the top seed in the West, winning the Big East outright title, but losing to Providence in overtime in the Big East tournament semifinal. Missouri, Florida State, good 8-9 game. The Seminoles have not played as well of late. Missouri gets Michael Porter Jr. back. He only played in one game, a couple minutes at the beginning of the season, has back surgery, comes back, was not overly effective in their Big 12 tournament game, but that's not surprising. Look at all the time he missed. His brother, Jonte Porter, has certainly been sensational throughout the course of the season. I think they beat the Seminoles and advance, but I like Xavier defensively, their toughness. I think they take out Conzo Martin's Missouri Tiger team, which I think that would be a very physical game, which Xavier likes to play. I think they advance. Let's go down here. I really struggled with this 5-12 game because South Dakota State, and I'm okay if you pick this as an upset because I think a lot of people will. The Jackrabbits, my favorite nickname in the field, love the Jackrabbits. Mike Daum is a sensational scorer, okay, so he could go for 35, 40 or something like that against Ohio State. The key here for the Buckeyes, Keita Bates-Diop, the Big Ten Player of the Year. Does he come and does he have a bust-out performance that he's capable of? I think Caleb Wesson could be a major factor for them inside, and so I like the Buckeyes to squeeze out maybe a late possession game and advance. All right, now let's go to Greensboro Gonzaga. These games are in Boise. I like the Zags over here. The Zags played for the national championship last year. They have had a phenomenal season, not expected. Remember, they lost Nigel Williams-Goss, Zach Collins, Shemer Karnowski. This is a team that was not expected to play as well this season, and yet here they are. Killian Tilly's playing great. Rui Hachimura. They've got Melson and Perkins. They've got experience in the backcourt. I like the Zags to beat Ohio State, advance to play Xavier, and prevent a Xavier-Ohio State matchup, which certainly would captivate everyone in the state of Ohio. A matchup really, by the way, guys, you should play that. Get a series going between Xavier and Ohio State. Chris Holtman would like to actually get that going between those two schools, bring in Cincinnati, and certainly have something where they have the state of Ohio on a yearly basis, kind of like they have the Crossroads Classic in Indianapolis. Don't know if that'll happen, though. We'll see. All right, so I've got Xavier taking on Gonzaga. I think this is where the road ends for the Zags. The Xavier Musketeers, Trayvon Blewett and JP Makura, I think they'll end up being a tough 1-2 punch for the Zags. We've seen Gonzaga. They lost earlier in the season to Villanova. Not that they can't beat an elite Big East team, but I think they lose to another one here in the Sweet 16. So Xavier advances to the Elite Eight, which, by the way, they were in a year ago and lost. I think that Xavier gets there yet again. So let's go to the bottom part of the bracket here out west. Houston taking on San Diego State. San Diego State has been on a roll. They knocked off Nevada and New Mexico to win the Mountain West Conference tournament. But the Cougars, despite losing to Cincinnati in a late possession game, I have fallen for this team from November. I was doing the Paradise Jam at Liberty University, where I was relocated from St. Thomas. I loved the Cougars then. I love them now. and I've got them advancing past the Aztecs. Kelvin Sampson, what a 180 he's done with his coaching career. Kind of left, obviously, not great terms at Indiana, goes to the NBA, comes back. He's rebuilt this Houston program. All right, now we're getting down to Michigan and Montana. The Grizz had a nice run in the Big Sky, but they're going to lose to the team that, just keep an eye out here, who I'm going to be talking very highly of, the Michigan Wolverines, who won the Big Ten tournament. John Beilein, one of the greatest coaches in the modern era. I'm saying that right now, and I'm telling you, I'm not alone. And he'll have plenty of time to pick apart Montana and Houston. This Michigan team, yes, they've had the layoff since winning the Big Ten tournament, but they are rolling right now. So I've got Michigan advancing past Houston. Down here, this is probably your best first-round matchup, certainly in this region, might be overall. Texas A&M and Providence, okay? The Aggies, when they play up to their potential early in the season, they were a top 10 team. Suspensions, injuries, they've been a chaotic mess, but yet they get a 7 seed. And Providence, just saw them in the Big East tournament, 3 overtime games. And the Friars, I think, will advance past A&M because of their grit and their toughness. They make big plays. I like the Friars there. Bottom of the bracket, North Carolina taking on Lipscomb. North Carolina played well up until the last few minutes against Virginia in the ACC tournament title game. I like this Providence-Carolina matchup, very physical game. Carolina's experience, I think, in this moment gets them to play Michigan. This would be, whoa, what a blue blood type of game this would be. Michigan taking on North Carolina. They played early in the season in the ACC Big Ten Challenge at Chapel Hill. Carolina won handily. Different Michigan team, though, now, even though Carolina has improved. Then I've got Xavier advancing to play Michigan in the Elite Eight in Los Angeles. Michigan knocking out Carolina the second time around. This would be a very interesting matchup between Michigan and Xavier. So that's what I've got right now in the West. Let's take another question that you may have at this juncture from our users. And here's one. What's the chances of Michigan making a legit title run, asks Andrew Luck. Can't give everything away. You see where we are. Stay tuned. The Wolverines are going to do something special this season, all right? But you are thinking the right thing. All right, so now let's go to the East bracket. Villanova advances. Virginia Tech, Alabama. If you've watched the SEC tournament, Colin Sexton has been on a roll of late. I was at the 5-on-3 game between Minnesota and Alabama. The reason Alabama was within a couple points was because of Colin Sexton. The right 3 were on the floor. So I like this matchup, but I think Villanova's defense, by the way, Jalen Brunson versus Colin Sexton, great matchup. I think Villanova advances. West Virginia Murray, could be a little dicey, 5-12. Murray played very well and won a very competitive Ohio Valley over Belmont, but I like West Virginia advancing. Then Wichita State taking on Marshall. Don't get confused. That's Greg Marshall from Wichita State taking on the Thunder and Herd of Marshall, who just won Conference USA. I like the Shockers to advance. Boy, how about this matchup? West Virginia against the physicality of Wichita State. I'm going with, this is a tough one. I'm going to go with West Virginia, okay? West Virginia is going to advance over Wichita State. This is the game that I agonize more than any other one on this entire group, because I think this one is a late possession game, extremely physical, okay? But I'm going to go with West Virginia advancing to take on Villanova, an old Big East matchup right here, okay? But Villanova's defense, you got Brunson versus Javon Carter, Bridges, Dexter Miles. I like Villanova advancing to the Sweet 16. Let's continue on. All right, St. Bonaventure taking on UCLA. That is, as you know, one of these first 4 games. UCLA, I think they're a little gassed after what happened in the overtime period against Arizona late Friday night, in the Pac-12 tournament. I love the guards of the Bonnies. Love them. Jalen Adams, Matt Mobley, I think they win in Dayton. I think they knock off Florida, which has been erratic all season. I got the Bonnies advancing, okay, into the second round, which is, would be great for St. Bonaventure and all their fans, and only in New York. Texas Tech, Stephen F. Austin. I got the Red Raiders advancing defensively. They're just going to shut down, I think, Stephen F., who can certainly score. And then the Bonnies and the Red Raiders, Keenan Evans, as long as he's healthy, I think he outduels Jalen Adams. And I've got the Red Raiders advancing into the Sweet 16. Bottom part of the East bracket. Arkansas Butler. You know, Arkansas tends to turn it on in the NCAA tournament. I like their chances here in the first round advancing. Then Purdue and Fullerton. Purdue's experience, their size, I think is going to be too much for Fullerton and for Arkansas. So I've got Purdue and Texas Tech meeting up in the Sweet 16. This would be in Boston. Isaac Haas, the experience here, actually very experienced teams, both of these. I think Purdue advances to the Sweet 16 to take on Villanova. Two senior-laden teams, okay, upperclassmen teams. This is great for college basketball. I think this would be a tremendous matchup in Boston if we had Villanova taking on Purdue in the Elite Eight. All right, so we've got 3/4 of the bracket so far to this point. Let's take another question from our users here. This one says, is there a better duo in the tournament than Nova's Brunson and Bridges? Well, there are good tandems. Better, I mean, like I said, I love the Bonnie guards. I would say that may be the best perimeter tandem. You know, I mean, Bridges is a tweener, if you will, a wing. I'll agree with you there. I'll say it's the best one, and you'll see why here shortly. All right, the fourth of our regions here is the Midwest bracket down here. This is going to be, the region's going to end up in Omaha, Nebraska. So Kansas is the 1 seed, just taking on a Penn team that just won the Ivy League over Harvard. I've got Kansas advancing to the second round. Seton Hall, NC State, two teams that have been all over the map this year. I think this is probably the best 8-9 game in the entire field. Two very evenly matched teams. Desi Rodriguez, Angel Delgado, I mean, Al Freeman, these guys could all go off, but I like the Pirates advancing, taking on Kansas. I think Devontae Graham, though, is going to be the difference maker here, and the Jayhawks end up advancing to the Sweet 16. Let's go a little lower. This is where I've got the pot. I'm stirring the pot a little here. You want a team that's going to advance further than you think? Well, I got one for you. Clemson Tigers, I think they've peaked. New Mexico State, I've seen this team in the Diamond Head Classic. They lost to USC in the final. They took out Illinois when Illinois was playing okay in Chicago. They just won the WAC. They are an athletic, long, rangy team. They are going to cause some problems for Clemson. I like this as a 12-5 upset. Auburn, Charleston, got the Tigers advancing. The Tigers are thin. They're missing their big, who's been injured. So I really like the Aggies here in an upset of Auburn. I like New Mexico State advancing to the Sweet 16. This is the pick. If you're looking for a surprise pick, sometimes you go all chalk. No, I'm going New Mexico State in this bracket, advancing to the Sweet 16. But that's where the Cinderella run will end. I've got the Jayhawks advancing. Their experience too much for New Mexico State. Last part, TCU taking on the winner of ASU and Syracuse. Syracuse was the last team in the field. The zone has worked for the most part. ASU, when they're on, is one of the best shooting teams in the country. The issue has been they've been erratic in the Pac-12. I think they finally find their mojo again and get hot in this game, okay, to at least advance to this point. The one thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to make a little switcheroo here, okay, because I'm going to believe in these Sun Devils here. I'm actually going to go with ASU here, okay? I'm going to switcheroo here, which I'm privy to do, and I'm going to go with ASU, all right? Because I think ASU ends up continuing their hot streak, beating the Horned Frogs, who are without Jalen Fisher for obviously a good chunk of the latter part of the Big 12. And so I'm going to have ASU advance to CCU. This is out of the first four, getting all the way to play Michigan State, which will have a very physical game, or a tough game, I should say, against Bucknell. Arizona State, Michigan State, but Michigan State's potential Jaren Jackson, I think, will be too much trouble. Miles Bridges, I think, will hit some big shots. And I like Cassius Winston's leadership. I got Michigan State advancing over Arizona State. Bottom part, a lot of criticism that Oklahoma's in the field at all. Well, at some point, they're going to have to play well. I don't think it happens. I think they've just gone sideways. I like the Rams, despite losing today in the Atlantic 10 tournament title game. I think they knock off the Sooners. They advance to take on Duke, okay, in the second round. The Blue Devils' size inside is too much for the Rams. And then we get a Duke-Michigan State rematch from the Champions Classic. I think this is where Michigan State elevates their game. They advance to the Sweet 16, knocking off Duke. Michigan State taking on Kansas in the I'm sorry, so in the Sweet 16, in the Elite Eight. So in the Elite Eight, Kansas taking on Michigan State, and that game will be in Omaha. So that's where we've got our Elite Eights, okay? But let's take a question before I start to fill in the rest of the bracket. And here's one from Dalton. Which region has the greatest chance of a team outside the top 4 seeds to make the Final Four? Okay, let's see here. You're going to challenge me on this one. Outside the top 4, and I did not see these questions in advance. Now I got to think here. I don't think it's going to come from the East. Outside the top 4, I don't see it coming in the Midwest. Definitely don't see it coming in the South. And here in the West, I guess if I have to pick one, I'll pick the West, even though I love Michigan, and I'll go with Houston or Ohio State. But if you're gonna make me pick one, I guess I would have to go with, I'll go with Ohio State, which would be just outside the top 4. I still don't think it's gonna happen. All right, let's go to my Final Four at this turn. I'm gonna go back in the same area. Defensive struggle, Virginia versus Cincinnati. Here's what I love. I love the fact that Virginia was able to follow up its regular season title with an ACC tournament title. So I am going with Virginia, okay? Virginia over Cincinnati. Xavier versus Michigan. I told you, I am high on the Wolverines. I love this team. I love the fact they got Duncan Robinson and Jordan Poole coming off the bench. I have Michigan advancing to the Final Four out of the West. Michigan taking on Virginia. In the East, in Boston, Villanova was once there, beat Pitt on a last-second shot. I can see it again. Late possession game, Nova, ball is in Jalen Brunson's hands, and he does something special. So I got Villanova. Down here, Kansas taking on Michigan State. Kansas, I think, has overachieved this season. Michigan State, maybe could have been a 1. You know, I mean, you could make an argument that they shouldn't have been a 3, they could have been a 2. They won the Big Ten. I'm going with Michigan State. I've always thought their potential is to get to the Final Four. So I've got Virginia, Michigan, Villanova, Michigan State. 2 Big Ten teams, which will quiet all the criticism that they had their tournament that ended the Sunday before the Sunday, Selection Sunday. I think that you're gonna get 2 Big Ten teams in there. You got the 2 Vs, who have been maybe the most consistent teams in Virginia and Villanova. All right, so what happens between Virginia and Michigan? When we started this, I said I was high in Michigan. I'm gonna continue that run of Michigan. I think this is where Virginia, you give first of all, 2 phenomenal coaches, Tony Bennett and John Beilein. But you give John Beilein how many days, or whatever, you know, however many days this is in advance of this game, he's gonna figure out a way to score against Virginia. Okay, so I'm going with Michigan over Virginia in the national championship game. First time they're playing for it since 2013 when they lost to Louisville. Okay, now you got Villanova taking on Michigan State. I just love the leadership that I saw in the Big East tournament from Brunson and Bridges. I think Villanova takes on Michigan, okay, for the national championship. This would be a great game. I think it's up and down, 2 very good offenses. I just like the point guard play better at Nova than Michigan, and I'm going with Villanova to win its 2nd national title in 3 years. Villanova, with the player of the year, at least my player of the year, Jalen Brunson, wins the national championship in San Antonio. If we get this Final Four, okay, you've got Jay Wright, Tom Izzo, John Beilein, Tony Bennett. You've got experienced elite talent, great team chemistry with the Cavaliers, player of the year potential Jalen Brunson, and incredible talent, you know, with Bridges and Jaren Jackson. I think this would be a great Final Four if all this occurs. You know, we'll see how I fare. Let's see how I've done before. What I want you to do, by the way, as you're looking at this, I want you to challenge me, all right? So You can take your shot at the Capital One Bracket Challenge. I want you to go to www.bracketchallenge.ncaa.com. All right? You're going to see, and my group will be up there. You can challenge me in the Bracket Challenge, or certainly compete in the Bracket Challenge as well. What we have even before any of that starts, okay, is the first four in Dayton, Tuesday and Wednesday night. You've got the 16 seeds, LIU Brooklyn taking on Radford, tip time at 6:40 Eastern time. That's going to be followed by the Bonnies taking on UCLA. As I said, I got the Bonnies advancing. Then on Wednesday, UNC Central taking on Texas Southern, and then the last one, Arizona State Syracuse. Check out Alabama reacting to getting in the field. They knew they were getting in. Wright State out of the Horizon League. UMBC, the Terriers, Lipscomb. Great win in the ASUN at Florida Gulf Coast. All right, plenty to digest. Go to NCAA.com and March Madness Twitter handle for all our coverage of the bracket release here on Sunday from our Turner Studios. I'm Andy Katz. Thanks for watching.